Hi, everybody. This is Carol from Healthcare Potholes with Christian Faith. I'm going to talk a little bit about anger and depression. They kind of go sort of hand in hand, I feel. There is a lot of people out there that are going through what we call situational depression. And there's two types of depression. There's the one that's manic depressive, that's where you get a high and you stay up there for a while, then all of a sudden you crash down and you stay sort of where you don't do anything. You're like in a, not eating, not sleeping, not drinking fluids to stay hydrated, and you're clinically depressed. And sometimes you're paralyzed with fear, and it's another thing I want to talk about as well. So, with manic depression, it's diagnosed by an MMPI, and it also lets you know what you might have. Sometimes there's borderline personality that will show up on an MMPI, schizophrenic, manic depression. A lot of the psychiatric things will show up on the MMPI. It's a very extensive test that you take. And I can remember in nursing school, we all had to take it. And our instructors would say, okay, here is what I want you to be on the MMPI. And we would have to kind of fudge the MMPI to have it. And then it would come back, and either we were right or wrong. And if they said, okay, I want you to be borderline personality, and so they would say on these questions, really think about them. And if you answered them wrong, they came back that you were borderline personality. So it's kind of an interesting test when you take it. So we learned how to manipulate the test. We learned how to take the test the regular way. We took the test just as we are, and we passed it based on if we were normal or not. And then they would come and say, okay, now we want to do a study for you to do things this way. And then I want you to write your paper about it so you can finish your class. So there was a lot of things that went on with the MMPI test. And there was other tests that we did that we played around with. And we had to write a lot of papers in psych. It was a lot of fun. I just loved it. And anyhow, so that manic depression is where it can be treated medically by a psychiatrist. It has to have medication. It's long term. It's not anything you're going to get over. Okay. Situational depression is where it's based on a situation that you may be going through. Grief is a very big one. Losing a loved one could be spouse, kid, sibling, grandkid, dogs, pets, anything in the pet line that you have and lost. All that plays into that as a depression. It could be that maybe you're not happy with your job, maybe you're not happy with your spouse, maybe you have a difficult child that you're having to deal with. Maybe you have a kid that's gotten involved in drinking and drugs, and maybe one of your other family members has done that, and you're depressed about it. Finances is a big one that depresses people. There's just so much out there that causes depression. And depression that's situational, as we call it, is short term. It can last for quite a while if you're going through the grief process. That's why I recommended the Death and Dying book by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, because you'll see that when you lose a family member, you're not always going through the same at the same time as that person. And sometimes over the grief process, like let's say parents have lost a child and they grieve differently. And one might be angered and one might be in the bargaining stage, and they're just not meshing right, and they end up divorced. That in itself is a depression. I mean, not only have they lost a child, but they've also had a divorce, so they've had another loss. We had a thing called Seeley's Continuum. There was a lot of continuums, but that was one of them that I remember quite extensively. and studied quite extensively. You get a new job. You have stress in your new job. You have to learn things. And one of my nurses' husbands, and they're a young couple, but he was a police officer for a long time and he got out of it. And now he's working at another company and he's a manager of a department. And I said, "Well, how's his job going?" I told him he had to at least give it a good solid month. So, see, he's going through that stage of stress and everything and learning a new job, which I commend him at doing. And so there's always a lot of your kids could be giving you a hassle with it, and I call it a hassle with a tassel. Because if you get your kids through life and they're grown up and they're good, responsible adults and they're doing good, then you can get that tassel and move it over like at graduation. And it's important to know that with all our stresses, God says in the Bible, cast your burdens onto me, cast your worries onto me, cast your fears onto me. God has big shoulders, really huge shoulders to handle a lot of stress from us down here. And we're all his kids. We're all his kids down here. While we may have maternal parents, we have the ultimate one up there. And so it's just like, um, and I don't know exactly which verse it is in the Bible to direct you to, but they have a boat, and these boats were not good boats, let me say. They were not like these big cruise ship liners. They weren't like the boats that the Navy tours around on, or it wasn't like a yacht. Some yachts are big. These were little fishing boats that they were on, and um, on the Sea of Galilee, all of a sudden a storm came in and the boat was being tossed from side to side to side to side. And Jesus was sleeping on the boat during all this. It was raining and water coming in, and he was sleeping right on through it. And one of the disciples went over and woke him up and says, "Master, Master, Rabbi, Rabbi, we're having a problem here. We need you." And he woke up and he says, "What's the problem?" He says, "We have a storm and we're afraid we're going to sink." And he says, "Why are you fearful about that? I'm here with you." That says a lot. So all of a sudden the storm went away and they were relieved. The seas became calm. And he was saying, "Be not afraid, for I am here with you. Be not afraid, I am here with you." That is in the Bible. Now, don't ask me, what verse is that? I want to find. I don't have a concordance. My brother had his concordance and I didn't get it. So it went to one of the other family members. So, anyhow, that is important to know, that verse. Be not afraid, for I am here with you. And that is so true in life. That is just like with depression. And I say, be not depressed, for I am here with you. And be not depressed, for I am here with you. Be not stressed, for I am with you. Be not angered, for I am with you. And he is saying, cast your burdens onto me. I will take care of those burdens. And he does. He does. And I am not fabricating. He will take care of them in his time. Might not be today. It might not be tomorrow. It might be a week or 2 down the road, just like with your talents when you try to find a job with your talents or your dreams. It takes a while to prepare for what you're going after if you're dreaming about becoming a police officer, a nurse, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever the case, teacher, whatever the case may be, minister. He is there opening doors, closing doors, opening doors, closing doors. He's a very busy guy when I thought about it. Um, we were just sitting there going, wow, this is interesting. I can now, because I'm walking with Christ, throw everything onto him and he can have it and I don't have to worry about it. Health, will come back. Health will come back. Now, why does God take some people and heal others? We'll have to find out when we get to heaven. And just like with Barnabas, he says it's not your time yet. How did he know it wasn't Barnabas' time not to be healed at that point? He had been walking around on a crutch for quite a few years. How did he know that it wasn't his time to be healed? That he had to wait to be healed? It's something to think about. So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking of all these people that are losing jobs at these tech companies. There's a lot of layoffs going on. We have all these illegal immigrants coming over. I can't find a job. I've been looking for a year and a half. I sent out over 100 applications and I haven't heard back from a single one. And I sat down and I says, "Is it something I'm doing, Lord? What am I doing wrong?" Well, I did, try to open up my business. I'm still working on it. I still want to see this business take off. I'm now really bugged by it, and I want to see my all spoiled rotten pets take off. And it will in time. God's got to get the ducks in the road before we open it. Even though it's open already for business, He wants to have it be grandiose. He wants it to be just pristine. Now, do I have depression over not selling a pet supply? Yeah, because I'm facing homelessness. I had difficulty coming up with the money for my car insurance. I had difficulty coming up with different things. And, it's hard when you have all these bills sitting here that you have to pay. Now, my brother has a couple of them, but here's my pile of bills that I have to pay. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. I don't have the money for it. I've called companies, talked to companies. I'll be calling some more companies tomorrow after I get home from infusion, and we'll see what we can do. But it is scary times that we're living in, that we can't pay bills because of inflation being so high, stock market tanking, and situational depression is finances. Situational depression is losing someone in your life. There's any type of situation, getting diagnosed with cancer is a situation. Um, Having a kid that may be backsliding into alcoholism or drug abuse or any of that stuff. Losing a child, a grandchild, a parent, a sibling. It's all stress. Nephew, niece, aunt, uncle, cousin. It's all stress. It's all depression. Depression and stress. And you don't realize how it impacts the individual. I'm not saying that, oh, I lost someone, I got to run right away to the shrink. No, there is no pill that will help the situation. The situation has already happened. The only thing that you can do is pray about it. And it's just like um, the first thing you want to do is be safe. Okay, so if you're in an abusive situation and you're being pounced on, get out of it. Okay, there's centers out there that can help you and they will guide you. And that's an important thing to know. But get out of the bad situation that you're in. Um, then you will have a clearer mind in thinking how to handle things. And then you might find someone who's a lot better than what your previous spouse was, and you'll be happier. Um, it takes time in life. God said when we became Christians and started to walk with Him that life would be smooth. He never said that. He says you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have ups and downs. And that's the way life is. You'll have ups and downs. I'm not saying that's manic depression up and down either. I'm just saying that He knows we're going to have problems. There's going to be always problems in life. There's no way to get through it. There's just no way to get around it. It's like that mountain that you have to kind of go around or tunnel through or climb over it. He said that in the Bible. It's there and you got to deal with it. And does it make you a better person because you have problems? Well, everybody has different problems. I have a friend who was abused many years ago. She's still holding on to that baggage and throwing it up. And then there's other people that have been through other situations. They're just throwing it up. And when I want to say what's right for one person isn't right for another person. How one person handles things isn't the same as the other. Some people have a total misconception, and no matter how much you explain to them, they still have the misconception. And it's just like you just give up. You're just like, whatever. So I'm at that point with somebody because they just don't want to hear it because they have a convoluted delusional attitude. And, I know that that's their opinion. They're entitled to their opinion, but I know what's right. And I know that Jesus was in my changing room, so he knows I'm a good person, or he wouldn't have been in my changing room. Okay? So, with that being said, depression sometimes takes a while to get through, depending on the situation that you're in. It might not be something that you can remedy within 24 hours. It may take a while. Now, when my dad died, we lost all of his income, and that has put a financial distress on us. It wasn't anything we did. He died. We were all living together, taking care of dad who had dementia. And we gave up our life, our careers, and we can't get them back because of COVID. And it's like, okay, let's just start looking. We have our health issues now, so let's just start looking for a job that we can do from home. Okay, health issues. What are mine? I have hypomagnesemia. I have this. I have that. And it just always takes a lot out of you when you go through things. You have to learn to just let it go. Let it go. And, I know what I've been through with my parents with identity theft, with bank stealing from them, their check from the sale of the house. I know what I've been through from someone at the bank allowing another banking company to call and clean out my parents' bank account. I was devastated. They were devastated. They came to me and said, "We have a problem." And I went down and I raised the roof of the bank and I was kicked out of the bank. And I took their money out and I put it in a different bank and I opened up accounts with my own money to make sure that they got out of that bad situation. But we never regrouped or recouped any of that loss. And the bank is just as shoddy as they can be. And so that's been a big issue. That's been a very big issue because they stole from mom and dad. And it doesn't, during that whole time I was going through it, I was very angered. Oh man. And it played on my blood sugars. I was on a brink of becoming a diabetic, and it just threw me over that edge. And now I sit back and I say, okay, I sit back and I say, wow, I don't have to um, deal with that bank anymore. That will relieve some of my stress. Well, then, when my dad died, they sent me to the IRS, and I have to pay all this back tax on stuff that they had stolen from my parents. Do you think I'm happy about that? No. I'm sitting here with this IRS bill that I refuse to pay. And I talked to an attorney, actually two attorneys, and they said, you don't have to pay it. You don't have to pay it. That was wrong to do that. So I'm like, okay. Now, one sort of did, I think, some type of estate planning, and another one sort of did general law. So I'm like, okay. And my brother's an attorney, and he says, we're not paying it. And so we're just going to sit here, and when they show up at the door, we'll say, well, this is the situation. Well, we'll be in a pup tent by then. I'll have a hard time finding where we're at because we're going to make sure we're really off the grid. So, anyhow, but depression does play into a lot of things, and it plays into your health problems. And with depression, you can get cancer, hypertension, diabetes. You can die of a heart attack. You can have just all sorts of things that happen. So it's just like that sympathetic system that just kind of stays revved up a little bit that you thought you got rid of. And anger is in there too. And that plays a part in everything and letting go. So I liked what Jesus said in the boat, where he said, you know, why are you worried? I'm here with you. And while he was in a physical being, he's still here with us in the spiritual being. And it's like a reminder when you have the depression to just cast your worries out onto him. And, you know, after you do that, you feel so much better inside. You really do. You feel great. And I can't stress it enough. Walking with Christ is awesome. It is awesome. And just remember, you're always going to have hurdles to go through. God will be there with you. Cast your burdens over to God, and he will see you through. And that's the message that I want to give out about depression. And so with manic depression, it's a chemical imbalance, but with situational, it's not a chemical imbalance. It's totally situational. And I would say every single one of this country has people that go through situational depression at some time or another. And you know, that's one thing when you have things that happen and you get very angered about it. Um, because anger sometimes plays into the depression. And getting a gun and going and shooting people, like my neighbor behind, is not going to remedy things. Um, Going and yelling at someone, doing road rage at someone, um, any of those hostile things I call, is not remedying anything. It's not going to make you feel any better. It's not going to make you say, okay, I'm doing this because of this. Um, these people that are burning buildings down, do they feel better after they do it? No, they end up going to jail. People that have tore statues down, they've ended up going to jail. There's just, and you're sitting in jail and you're away from your family. You have a lot of time to think about Christ. So you need to just stop all this mayhem, leave it roll off your shoulders, give it over to God, and pray about it. And just know that if you're depressed, tomorrow will be a better day. You know, just like I say, oh, I'm going home and pull the blanket up over my head. Well, basically, I'm going home and sleep for a while and think about things, and hopefully, when I get out of bed, life will be better. So that's how I deal with my depression. But is that right or wrong? I don't know. But I also turn it over to God. I find some time to sit there and really meditate with God, and He likes that. So don't sit there and pull the iron out and do things to people. It's not going to make you better. No. You need to sometimes talk things over as an adult. You might each have different opinions. And I go back to my psych nursing, that that's how you see it, but that's not how I see it. And that's an important thing in psych nursing. That's how you see it, but that's not how I see it. Meaning they're wrong, you're right, and there is no, you know, their opinion is their opinion. Your opinion is your opinion. Now, when we get to an impasse, we have to think about that. How do we deal with an impasse? And that'll be in one of my other videotapes, because being at an impasse is very interesting in how you deal with it and how you come out in a win-win situation. So I just want you to know that God is great. God is good. And cast your worries out on him and he will take care of it. Just like he did when the boat was being tossed side to side and the disciples were scared. And they woke him up and said, Master, Master, Rabbi, Rabbi, we're having a problem. And he says, what's the problem? Why are you fearful of the storm? Well, we're afraid we're going to sink. Well, okay, but we're not. I'm here. So he's saying that he's going to take care of that so they don't sink. Isn't that comforting? I know it is to me. So, anyhow, have a good night. I got to go get some dinner.